This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com. Let's also talk about the next segment, because we've got Too Cool, who we just talked about, except this time it's not with Rikishi, of course, but Scotty Too Hottie and Grandmaster Sexay are hosting from the WWF New York. And next up, it's Shane McMahon coming out, and he says he's figured out who hit Steve Austin with the car, and he's got footage to prove it. And he shows videotape of Ken Shamrock being hit by a car in a parking garage. And then Steve Blackman emerges from the car. So he's saying, hey, it's clearly Steve Blackman. And of course, your partner, Jerry Lawler, is putting it over big. That's better than DNA proof, Jim, which is great. Of course, Blackman comes out. He's clearly upset at Shane and his circumstantial evidence, but then the glass shatters, the crowd explodes, and so do you on commentary. Austin's using his disturbed version of his theme song. He's going to stun Blackman, and Shane's going to go nuts celebrating with Austin. And of course, first trouble. And this is a great segment. Shane gets not one, not two, but three stunners. And of course, there's a beer bash. JR selling it as one of the greatest pops in the history of pro wrestling. And when you hear the crowd and see their response, they're ready for anything Austin does. So perhaps if Austin isn't ready to get back in the ring, we can still give him something. And this is going to send him home happy in this segment, is it not?
Yeah, it sure is. Here's what I'm trying to figure out. Is Meltzer knocking me for selling it too hard? And based on what? His opinion. That's got to be it, because there's no guideline.
Right.
I sold it like the audience reacted to it.
Right.
And so if that's wrong, then I've been doing a lot of things wrong for many, many years, where you try not to oversell something where it becomes a distraction. Oh God, JR, stop it. I mean, the building was shaking. The crowd was on their feet. It was as organic could be when that glass broke. So I don't know what days. What do you think? What do you think he was getting at there? I was over the top, or too much, or what? I don't get it. I don't understand. I thought I was doing my job. Apparently, at least for his opinion on that particular situation, I might not have been.
Yeah, I thought it was a great segment. And it's funny because you and I talked about this show off air before we clicked record today. And, I think you said something like, hey, what'd you think? And I said, this watched like a Monday Night Raw. I mean, certainly we've got pay-per-view style matchups, but there's so many in-ring promos and behind the scenes skits and backstage promos and vignettes that it feels like a Monday Night Raw without commercials, except nonstop, main event style matches. I get why the company was so successful at this point. We were heavy on story, and we're heavy on character development, and we're going to put some matches out there. Sure, we could, critique some of the matches, and maybe we should have cut that match, and maybe we should have given this one a little more time. But this just felt like a fun watch when I watched it back this week. That's my overall impression before we get to the main event. Would you agree?
Yeah, pretty much. We still would deliver some meaningful and neat-worthy matches, but we did have a lot of backstory, a lot of storytelling, and that was a trend that Vince was going through at that point in time. That really has led to what we see now in WWE. A lot of story, and which is fine. That's their product. That's what they want to do. That's cool. I think where we're doing in AEW, we're trying to balance that, where you still have some backstory and reasons for the matches. We want to make sure we have match time. If you look at our match time on our television shows on Wednesday nights on TNT, you'll see that we have significant match time in only a squash match, based on time restraints, sporadically. So yeah, I'm with you, Conrad, on that deal. It was a different trend. We were moving into a different trend, and one of the reasons was because we had some people that were really good on the mic. Austin was good. Rock was good. Taker and his new character did a very nice job. Triple H could cut a promo. Of course, Mick Foley was amazing. Kurt Angle, we said about this earlier. Kurt Angle started to come into his own as an entertainer, meaning that he became a much more proficient talker. He was a better vocalist, if you will. So I think you're playing to your strengths of your roster, and one of the strengths of our roster was not only could many of them work their ass off in 4 or 5 star matches or whatever, but they could talk. So, and then you get to the situation where maybe we're a little bit heavy on talk, a little bit less on action, or maybe we're a little bit heavy on action, a little bit less on talk. It's all up to the ear of the beholder, so to speak. But I thought we did. I thought we were pretty well. The balance is pretty good. Personally, I would have preferred to have a little bit more wrestling and a little bit less talk. But because the guys are so good at talking,
Right.
and it helped build their characters and solidify the foundation of their TV personas, I didn't really have any major problems with it. But if I was forced to say, what do you like better, the talk or the wrestling? Well, I'm going to say the physicality and the wrestling.
Next up, we've got a skit again backstage where Stone Cold's going to beat up Kurt Angle after Kurt gives him an honorary gold medal he, quote, didn't really do anything for. Angle is hilarious in this entire show and all of his interviews backstage for the rest of the night. I think Kurt Angle was like the low key MVP of 2000. I know we're going to talk about Rock and Austin and Undertaker, Triple H and on and on and on, but I just think Kurt Angle, man, he steals the scenes he's in left and right here.
Kurt came into his own as an entertainer. There was never a doubt, obviously, and you got a legitimate gold medalist in freestyle wrestling for the 96 Olympics, that the guy could wrestle. We all saw that. I remember talking to Dory Jr. When we brought Kurt in, and Dory and Tom Pritchard, by the way, were both very invaluable to training a lot of guys, including Kurt Angle, and did a great job with him. But Kurt finally got comfortable in his own skin. He got comfortable being an entertainer and not just a shooter, not just a badass, which we all knew he was. But he became less than one-dimensional in that regard. He became more, I should say, more than one-dimensional. And I thought that was just amazing. So he acquired the skills of being an entertainer really rapidly, and got, as you said, Conrad, and you're right, he got really, really good at it.
Let's talk about the next segment here. We've got Commissioner Foley doing a segment with Kurt Angle. Foley's going to announce that he's going to make Triple H and Kurt Angle now a no DQ match. This was really good stuff. Then we see Rock in his dressing room. There's a stare down between him and Stone Cold, and then a handshake to a big pop. And then Just Joe comes in. His gimmick here is to stir up shit. Austin doesn't even let him finish his thought. He just says he heard Just Joe was a sorry son of a bitch, and he whips his ass. You got any good stories about Just Joe?
Conrad, I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't remember, as we talk about this today, who Just Joe was.
Joe E. Legend.
Now I remember. He was a guy that was a journeyman, not bad skills, but he was a placeholder to get his ass whipped, and he fulfilled his obligations. And look, but at least you're getting your ass whipped by Austin.
Yeah. Hey, there are worse things.
Yeah.
Then we see
Joe E. Legend, a good guy. And he finally got a little break, but it was short lived. There were some people that got him in. I hired him, but I didn't find him, which meant nothing other than, but he came recommended. Again, solid guy. Again, I use the baseball analogy. He was about a 7 or 8 hole hitter. He was not going to beat you, but he's not going to drive in a lot of runs. He's a solid utility-like player. And but he and that night, his role was to get his ass whipped by Stone Cold, and he fulfilled the obligation.
Next up, we've got Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.